Hi, I'm the Poly Tipster. You're listening to part four in a six-part series on coming out when you are polyamorous and have a family. Okay, yeah, so I wanted to get a little deeper into coming out to your ex-wife or ex-husband. In our case, we have an ex-wife. So my theories about what kind of an ex-wife would be a good candidate to come out to. So if you have someone who has emotionally moved on, has remarried, or has a partner themselves, and you have a pretty good working relationship with them, with your kids, um, that might be a good person to come out to. Um, because you already have some good, I guess, deposits in that relationship with them if you've got a good, strong, positive working relationship. Don't underestimate, even if they have moved on and even if they have remarried or have a new partner themselves, you can still be dealing with some of the emotional fallout of you moving on. And, again, this stuff, it isn't necessarily specific to polyamory, but people have to process. And, if you made children with somebody, you loved them at one point, and they loved you, and there's probably a lot of stuff, unresolved stuff still there. So you could have a bad reaction. But I think if you have to think it through and you're trying to figure out, wow, would my ex-wife be a good candidate? Could I tell her about my new partners? If she's moved on, she might be a good candidate. If your ex was also or is also involved in polyamory, definitely a good candidate, and also a little bit of an insurance policy in case you ever have to go to court. The courts tend to view people who were engaged in a similar lifestyle as you can't really throw a stone at somebody if both of you were smokers and you're starting to complain that the other person's a smoker. It's kind of like that. If the kids are already grown, eh, you can tell her if you want to. I don't think it would be any of her business at that point. Um, but if the kids are in high school or any time you have kids in the house, I think you're going to have to seriously, really come to a place where you should tell her or him. I mean, it's just going to be used against you if you don't, I think. So you can take it slow, but eventually, either that or you might want to consider living separately in your private life, and what goes on in the bedroom is your business. And if you don't live with your partners, then it usually goes unnoticed and under the radar. But yeah, all right. So bad candidates. So there's, if you've been out on YouTube and looked around a bit, especially when listening to people talk about their ex-wife, their ex-husband, there's a lot of discussion about mental health issues, especially things like narcissism, cluster B disorders like bipolar, histrionic personality, those kinds of issues where the person runs hot and cold and they cause a lot of chaos in their relationship with you. Very bad candidate for sharing something as personal as your relationship status and your newfound love of your partner and polyamory. They are going to take that information and they are going to use it against you. They might not do it right away, but they will eventually. This is kind of our situation a little bit. We've got, in our case, we've got a very high conflict individual who thrives on drama, has some mental health issues, and untreated. I think no one's going to sit there and say, oh, if you're bipolar and you're on medication and you have a right to be a parent. Of course you do. It's just when the bad behavior gets in the way of trying to be a decent co-parent. Because some of those mental health issues, they come part and parcel with entitlement. I'm the mother of these children. I will call the shots. If you've ever heard that before. I will decide, what the kids eat. I will decide if they are allowed to go on a plane by themselves. They're very much very entitled. And if you don't follow their prescription, you are going to end up with a battle on your hands. So the the just really briefly, because this is mostly about who I think is a bad candidate, but The solution to that kind of person is just to set up boundaries. And part of your boundaries may be they don't get to know about your sex life and your partner. And that's just that. Um, that's how you deal with an ex-wife or an ex-husband who's just very high conflict. So the third one, I kind of call this third person type, this archetype, the married divorced archetype. So this is the person who got divorced but is still acting like they are married. I think we all know that type. They will call you to come and fix the plumbing at 9 o'clock at night. They will they will borrow money from you pretty regularly, um, or even just use your credit card. In my partner's case, his he had to basically change all his accounts and change all his credit cards because even though he had been divorced for over a year, his ex-wife was continuing to spend money out of his accounts. So the married divorced archetype. I knew a woman. Actually, I was friends with the new wife. The new wife and her husband went to a soccer game to watch the son play soccer, and the ex-wife was at the soccer game, and she came up to the husband and noticed he had a blemish on his nose and decided she was going to pop his pimple right there in front of the new wife. So that's the type I'm talking about. You know, they haven't quite emotionally figured out that they're not that they're divorced. They still in their heads have a an emotional connection and relationship where those boundaries aren't firmly in place yet. So those are bad candidates for telling them that you are in a polyamorous relationship. Certainly early on, you know. So what about the ex-wife or the ex-husband that you don't have kids with? Should you tell them? I would say no. I mean, if you're really, really good friends with them and you want to share that piece of information. But if you don't really have uh, reason to hang out together or to be together any longer, and you're just it's just sort of this bump into the grocery store kind of thing, I don't think there's any reason to tell the ex. I mean, you might want to just think it through or write it down in your journal and put down, well, why do I want to tell my ex-wife or my ex-husband this piece of news? And just sort of explore the psychology behind your own reasons as to why you think you need to share that information with an ex where you don't have kids in the marriage from the marriage. So is it because they moved on or they dumped you and now you want to show them that you've got two people interested in you, look how great you are? You know, just kind of I'm not saying that this is you, but just examine your reasons and try to figure out what your motivation is for telling them. And that might be more helpful than actually telling them. Another bad candidate, if you when this applies to an ex-wife or of an ex-husband that you share, say, a business with, or you share friends with, or your worlds cross over in some way. I wouldn't tell an ex where you've got some crossover like that, even if the ex meets off all the other good candidate criteria. I would be very careful. Actually, is I'll qualify that because you're burdening that person with a secret of yours, and if they are in say you work with them, you guys work at the same company, and you've told them, they might let it slip to somebody else in the company, and before you know it, you're the subject of the rumor mill. So, and this applies to a friend just as much as it does to an ex. If there's a place where your friend or your ex, those two worlds collide, that Venn diagram crosses over, I would really take it slow or think twice about telling them. You don't want to have to worry about them keeping your secret. So that's it for this particular slide. The next topic I'm going to talk about in the next part of this is how to tell your kids. When to tell your kids and how to tell your kids. So be on the lookout for that. Thanks for listening.